Over the past sort of couple of weeks, Brexiteers in particular have not been having the best of time. First of all, you've got to look at the two big situations going on at this moment in time. The fact that you've got the US seemingly throwing Ukraine under a bus, not caring about European security situations or being invested in what goes on in Europe. And this has completely trashed sort of the world view of the Brexiteers that we can always rely on America. And especially now that you've had Keir Starmer going to Europe, working together with other European allies, cementing that idea that actually, yes, we and the Europeans can actually work very well together. And then this, of course, raises further questions. If we can work so well together on our mutual defense, why then can this not apply to economic reasons? Why then should we not be in the EU? Because you've seen a lot of Brexiteers literally almost be this flip of, yes, we love what Keir Starmer's been doing in Europe, but oh, boo, Europe. It's been so weird to watch this whirling dervish that they've got going on for that. The other big problem, of course, has been the Trump tariffs flip-flopping on absolutely everything. And of course, now we know that those Canadian tariffs have been paused until April 2nd. By the looks of it, once again, another month's reprieve. Gee, the stock markets are loving that. But also now, as far as we know, that's when we are suspecting tariffs to potentially fall not only on us here in the UK, but on the EU as well. So that, once again, blows up the whole economic idea of Brexit. However, Farage himself has also been having a lot of other problems because he has been trying to sort of, battle that as well. But also, ever since Elon Musk came out and said that, oh, Nigel Farage is, quote, not up to the job of leading UKIP, of being that guy who can lead the party. Bear in mind, if Farage goes, oh boy, reform is done. Like, reform is done completely. Not a lot of people seem to understand the whole reason like reform exists and the way it is now is because of Nigel Farage, because he has this popularity, this media savviness that no one else in his party possesses. Without Farage, they are nothing. Look what happened to UKIP after Farage left UKIP. And remember what happened to Reform when Farage sort of left Reform and then came back to lead it. So Farage is in a pretty big pickle because those calls to remove him have not gone away. They have not gone away. So Farage is in a bit of a pickle. And the last thing you need is maybe one of your own, MPs coming out, challenging your position. And of course, very often being cited by those people calling to replace Farage as the guy who should replace you. Interesting times indeed watching all this unfold. But there is really a big civil war in the Brexiteer camp going on over this, of what's been going on over the past sort of couple of weeks. Big internal civil war. But this is only now continuing, and this is now breaking up that really pro-hard Brexit camp in a way I never thought we would see. I never thought we would see that. But as always, before we do go more on into this, please remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one of today's link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. And of course, let's crack on into this because, oh boy, Yeah, this could only get worse, I think, for Farage. This is only going to get worse for him on this. So this comes from the New European with the title of Farage's Low Blow. So none of it is turning out how quite Nigel Farage planned. Not Brexit, which continues now to inflict misery on the UK. This week saw just how unlucky British tourists were being stranded at airports when airlines misapplied EU passport expiry rules and stopped them now boarding their flights. Yep, that's I didn't cover that story, but that was true, and I missed that story. But that was, yeah, that was pretty interesting when that started happening. But back to this, and of course, definitely not his now self-proclaimed close friendship with Donald Trump, which was supposed to push Farage and reform towards power while unlocking the mystic benefits of Brexit. And like I say, that is a big problem for Farage. That is a huge problem because Farage gets a lot of support, as far as we are aware, from dark money that comes from America. It goes into Farage. And if Farage turn against Trump, then that dark money tap gets turned off. And that will damage him. That will damage reform. So he ain't going to say anything against Donald Trump, even as you look at the polls, that the UK public wants a tougher stance against Donald Trump. They want people to stand, they want their politicians to stand up against Donald Trump. That is why over the past couple of weeks, Keir Starmer's approval ratings have been skyrocketing for this. So let's just run through, of course, the last few months once again. The Republican reptile, who once they said they'd be calling me Brexit Trump, thought obviously no one was, returned to the White House, and Farage was, of course, delighted. Then Trump's bullying of Ukraine and its president not only then united Europe in fear and loathing, it then forced the UK firmly back into the orbit of the European Union, 2 years after Tory distrust and months of now Labour dither. Again, I said it exactly, and I said it many times. The orange hurricane is going to push us back into the EU's orbit. And sooner or later, you've got to ask serious questions about who we should be doing deals with. What is in the UK's best economic interest to be? What is it in its best economic interest to do? So closer alignment with Brussels now grows ever more likely, and the Brexiteer dreams of a deregulated UK signing a US free trade now recede. And again, their big problem with this, because they're also realizing, a lot of those Brexiteers also realizing that US trade deal, if they did sign it, a lot of people in a lot of industries, from farmers, etc., you name it, would not be happy. But who have been the biggest group backing all those farmers? Oh, it's all those Brexiteers. So if they want to get that US trade deal signed and that, that dream of Brexit, they've got to throw UK farmers under the bus. They know full well they've got to at some point. And that's why I always say to those farmers, do not trust them, because they were so willing to throw British fishermen under the bus as soon as they were no longer convenient. They will do the same to you as well. And of course, as Keir Starmer now takes a lead on European defense and security, the Trump-whispering Putin apologist who leads reform is now seeing his poll ratings drop. Trump even praised Starmer, even his accent and his wife, and of course the great internationalist Jimmy Greaves nearly observed that global politics is a very funny old game. And now a new incendiary for Farage. And this is where it starts to get interesting, because I told you about the whole split in the Brexit camp that is forming. Now there is a split in his Reform Party. Rupert Lowe, the ruddy-faced former football chairman whose dog whistling on migrants is even more shrill than Farage's own, has now given a very deadly, sniffy interview about him to the Daily Mail. Asked whether Clapton's absent MP would make a good Prime Minister, Lowe replied very carefully, saying that it's too early to know whether Nigel will deliver the goods. He can only deliver if he surrounds himself with the right people. That there, bear in mind, if Rupert Lowe was in the Conservative Party and he said this about Kimmy Badenoch, that would be interpreted as a open declaration of war and an attempted, like, verbal assassination on the character of Kimmy Badenoch. That would be, like I say, conservative circles and news pundits would be sounding the alarms that he's about to try and pull a coup. just to give you how that would have been received if Rupert Lowe had said that about Kimmy Badenoch and he had been in sort of the Conservative Party. That would be very, very negatively received. But anyway, he continued. He said Nigel is, of course, fiercely independent, an independent individual, and is extremely good at what we have done so far. Has he got? He has got his messianic qualities. Will those messianic qualities, of course, distill into sage leadership? I don't know. Because at the moment, remember, Farage only has to keep 4 other MPs in line. How good will Farage be, let's say, if he has, 180 plus MPs suddenly to now keep in line? It's a fair question. I don't think he can. And if you've got such leadership problems as it's now been very apparent that he has, if he can't keep 4 MP lines in line, what's he going to have hope with a larger party? It would fall apart almost instantly from this. He continued saying that we now have to change from being a protest party led by the Messiah into being a proper structured party with a front bench, which we don't have. Nigel is a messianic figure who is at the core of everything, but he has to learn to delegate. Not everything can go through one person. Here's the thing. That was, if you remember back in the UKIP days, that was constantly said about Farage. Constantly. That everything is going through Farage. Farage does everything. UKIP was pretty much the Nigel Farage party. You'd think he was like the only member of the party. And he is doing it exactly the same with Reform. But Reform is different. It actually has people in Parliament. And Rupert Lowe is giving the exact same criticism that a lot of people gave about Farage when he was leader of UKIP. There's trouble ahead in Reform. I can guarantee you that. And people always said, Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister. Well, I will say this. Do you think Farage is going to be able to keep his momentum, his party together of like him and 4 other MPs together? I don't think so. He may be, quote, popular in the polls, but that hasn't translated into electoral victories. There have been almost 200 by-elections since the last general election. Guess what? It's not even in double digits. It's not even close to double digits, any of Reform victories. And I keep on saying, why do you see people so worried about Nigel Farage? The evidence is not there that he poses this massive threat. So we are going to have to start developing policy, Rupert Lowe continued, which is now going to change the way we govern. And I'm not going to be Nigel's side, by Nigel's side at the next election unless we have a proper plan to change the way we govern from top to bottom. And of course, many of you have known, because this has been talked about, that Reform can't continue in its party structure the way it is right now. A lot of people are very upset, but it is designed, and it was designed like that, so that Farage and Tice have full control of the party. If you want to change it into a more democratic, party, then you have to give more people control. You have to give more people a say in what they want, in what they do. And the second they maybe start to give party members more of a say in maybe what goes on, that's where you're going to see splits. Because the only thing that unites reform is this really hard right stance on immigration. Where does reform stand on a ton of other issues? The economy, defense, farming infrastructure, investments, infrastructure, you name it, a whole range of issues that never ever get brought up. Is the Reform Party really that united, or is it just at the moment everyone just agrees on this one thing and they daren't talk about anything else? Something else for you reform warriors to consider. So, an invitation to praise then turns into a threat. It is quite hardly a vote of confidence in Farage, and rumours now persist that Lowe thinks of himself as now deserving of a far higher profile than he currently has now. Could he be planning a leadership challenge, or even a defection to the Conservatives, with whom he says reform should strike a deal? Who knows? And frankly, who cares when we can all just enjoy reform, whose combined MPs could fit in a phone box, is actually starting a row now in a phone box. That's a problem for Farage. If you, like I said, if this is already happening with him and 4 other MPs, what's it going to be like if it's a larger party? Is Rupert Lowe going to actually be the guy who ends up taking out Nigel Farage? Interesting question, isn't it? And then what happens to that party without Nigel Farage? Well, remember what happened to UKIP, right? So even in these very tense and hectic times, you can be sure that Farage's discomfort is being enjoyed in Brussels too. Those who look on in horror as he tore into the European Commission's president, Herman von Rompuy, as a man of real substance, credit him with now the taming the raging debt in Belgium, for having the charisma now of a damp rag, and then of course the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk will no doubt be loving the spectacle of seeing Farage being humiliated by a man who is even below Lee Anderson in Reform's pecking order, and who once was appointed rugby coach Clive Woodward of Southampton's director of football. We now have, of course, Donald Trump to thank for setting all this in motion. If, as a result of his actions, we get rid of both Brexit and Farage, don't just settle for the state visit. We'll give him that peace prize too. Well, very, very interesting times indeed, isn't it? Wildly interesting times indeed. Wildly interesting times. And I will tell you this now. Keep an eye on what goes on between Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage. Things could be about to get very, very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. So, as always, let me know what you think down below in the comments. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.